All right, Matt Harmon, what do evaluators most get wrong when evaluating wide receiver play?
To me, it always comes back to fit within each individual team's ecosystem. Already one ecosystem drop. That's good in the first 30 seconds of the video. No, especially we were talking about this with this upcoming wide receiver class. Not to get specific right away, but to me, the top 5 guys in this class are also different. And I think that's one of the challenges, actually, if you're trying to rank and evaluate for not a specific team, just a general all 32. One guy might really work in one specific role for one specific team, but then another team just might not share that vision. So I think that's one of the challenges about the position is that a wide receiver is not a wide receiver, is not a wide receiver. These guys are all so different. And especially now, I think the biggest mistake, league-wide, what I think people make when they're projecting for all 32 teams is not taking into account how the league has shifted. I was just talking, to name drop, I was just talking to CeeDee Lamb about this 10 minutes ago. I started charting receivers in 2014. He came into the league in 2020. In that time period, the way offenses were structured changed a ton.
Yep.
And from 2020 to now, things have changed a ton. So
he was a big part of, I think, us changing the way we looked at it too, though, because he was operating out of the slot, but he's not just a slot receiver, which is kind of one of the biggest changes I think that's happened.
Completely agree. It's one of those things where he has all the traits, skills, and ability to line up at X receiver on 85% of his snaps and win and be a really productive player and a really good, useful player there. However, he's truly maximized and weaponized by playing all 3 receiver positions, moving all around the formation. And to me, it's if you have a number 1 and you're not doing that with that guy at this point, you're either committing malpractice or telling us that you think your number 1 receiver isn't very good. You have to be able to do that at this point.
So this is interesting. Are you looking at the draft now and thinking almost of wide receivers in their tiers, but in different buckets? This is the best slot receiver. This is the best guy that you're going to line up on the outside primarily. This is the best. Are you thinking more in terms of that as opposed to this is the best wide receiver period that checks every box?
Yeah, to me, and I think maybe sometimes this gets me in trouble with football analysis, but also maybe sometimes in real life too. I'm trying to think about the best possible scenario. So I think in a way when I'm ranking these prospects, okay, if this hits, if a team shares the vision, that I might share for how this player can be used to his highest capacity in the correct role, what does that hit look like relative to other players at the position? So it's less about all right, I think this guy is valuable in this role, which is really more of a premium than this guy being valuable in this role. It's what's the likelihood that he can hit in that given sort of imagined role as opposed to just comparing him to the other guy's upside case, if that makes sense.
Tell me team, where you're this is what I saw in the NFL as I'm watching this player's tape. Not that they're going to draft them at all. Not even thinking about draft capital or whether it's realistic, but just to paint a picture. Carnell Tate.
Okay, I think with Tate, he could really be used anywhere. Nate and I were talking about this yesterday. Nate Tyson and I were talking about this yesterday, that he's got him mocked to the Saints. And, and again, that's a realistic one because they're picking top 10. He probably could be a top 10 pick. That makes a ton of sense to me because I think he's a guy that can play inside out. That's a system that requires you to play inside out. That's why Chris Olave was as good as he was this year, because he was playing not just outside, wasn't just playing inside. He's moving around. There's a lot of dynamic pre-snap motion in Kellen Moore's offense. That makes a lot of sense to me. And he's, again, a player that I think can be an X receiver, but can move around. He's so polished. He's got great hands, ball tracking ability. And I'm early on still in charting these players. So we're not stamping final analysis here necessarily. We're not turning in our tests for quite some time here, but just from what I've seen from Carnell Tate, I think wouldn't say he's system proof. Nobody's truly system proof necessarily, but there's a role for him in a ton of different offenses in the NFL.
Jordyn Tyson.
I will admit that of the guys here at the top, he's the one I'm struggling with the most to find what do I think he is.
Okay.
Not that I think he's bad or I haven't liked him. Just not 100%. When I look at Tate and I look at Makai Lemon, who those two guys to me are sort of in their own grouping at the top, then I think there's a little bit of a drop off to Tyson and Boston. And I really like Casey Concepcion at Texas A&M. But again, I think that's kind of tier 2. The first two tier guys like Carnell Tate and Makai Lemon, I just understand what they are a little bit more. For Tyson, I think he might be a guy that it benefits from moving around. I don't think he should be a standalone X receiver. I think he's better against zone coverage and man coverage just from what I've seen so far. Somebody like you kind of want to get him rolling with the ball in his hands. I think some of the ball tracking down the field is a little hit or miss to me. So he definitely is much more landing spot dependent. I wouldn't say I have like a good feel again of like what team he should go to, but he's one that I'll be really curious to see what does his next coach view as his optimal position. Because like for me, I'm not sure, but I do think size wise, zone beating ability, those are traits that really matter in today's NFL. And the right quarterback paired with that ability could be a very productive player.
Pro Bowl quarterback Joe Flacco just walked by.
Oh, really? You never know who you're going to see here.
Makai Lemon.
God, I really like Makai Lemon, and I'm just hoping, like, you got the listed weight here, 5'11", 195. Brother, please be 5'11", 195.
Oh.
You know,
He hasn't officially, we don't have the measurements yet.
I don't think so. I mean, at the Combine, that's one I'm actually going to be paying a lot of attention to because, you know, I've been snake bitten a lot by these kind of smaller slot receivers who are man coverage beating demons. But with the way the league is moving now and teams are playing in these heavier personnel sets, like that's kind of an archetype. If you're a slot only guy, I'm not going to say it's like dying out, but we are seeing it disappear. Data wise, like those players just aren't on the field getting the same amount of opportunities. And I think guys like Josh Downs, Jaden Reed, like they're really good players, but they're just less valuable in today's game right now here in 2026 as to like 2018 when I really was liking that particular archetype of receiver. So again, I don't think Lemon is one of those guys because he's so much more physical. I think he's a little bit more akin to a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's like a cheap comparison, USC receivers, but at the same time, love his ability to diagnose zone coverage. I think he can beat man coverage down the field. Like any of these teams that have a power slot position available, but also want to and are comfortable using that player as a Z, I think he can be like a 120 target player very early in the NFL.
So what would be too small?
What would be too small?
Yeah, you said you're looking at those numbers.
See, for me, like, again, this is hard, Lindsay, because I'm trying to grow and develop as a person. I'm trying to get better about this because I have been like the least sizest evaluator you would know at receiver, especially. But it does matter, and teams really care about this. You know, some of these teams have
get hurt,
and they do
you
get
got
hurt.
Tank Dell, and he's like, we hit this, and then he's hurt all the time.
For Tank Dell, I said he went from being like, oh, this is why you bet on outliers to a cautionary tale like that. I mean, even Josh Downs, who I just mentioned, I love Downs' game. He's 5'9", 170 pounds, what he's listed at. Yeah, he gets hurt a lot, like, and then he's on and off the field. And can you really integrate that player in your offense? I mentioned Jaden Reed is another one. Bunch of injuries to start the season. He's got a foot. He's got a collarbone. It's this, that, and the other. So, yeah, for me, that 195 weight I'd be comfortable with. Closer to 200 pounds would be optimal. So, yeah, it's tough with these players. But, again, I don't care as much, but I know teams really care. And so, as an evaluator, you've got to take that into consideration.
Okay, two more I want to hear, like, what you envision. Denzel Boston.
Yeah, Boston, I think, classic X receiver. Definitely, I think every bit of 6'4", 210, what he's listed at. There are times when he's running routes. I was teasing this for like a week to my producers, being like, all right, I got a little like a shades of comp for Denzel Boston. He does remind me a lot of Mike Evans with those like long ass strides. I'm not saying he's about to be 1,000-yard receiver every year.
I hear you, but that's an interesting comp.
Yeah, but I also think Mike, you know, this is a funny thing. When you say Mike Evans, we think of Mike Evans, who he's been now. And I've had conversations with Mike about this over the years where he was, at the beginning of his career, just the biggest, fastest, baddest guy in the NFL, but he wasn't quite as refined as he got in the prime of his career. And that's what you're kind of hoping for a guy like Boston, that early on in his career, yeah, he's going to win with size. He's going to win with speed. I think he does have, like I said, those long strides, long arms, gets down the field. That's how it starts. And then as he becomes more of a pro, then he doesn't just play X. He moves into the slot a little bit. I do like his blocking. I think in a lot of these more modern offenses where they're moving that receiver around, I think he can fit and do more than just the kind of straight line classic X receiver stuff. In time, though, that might take a little bit of time for him to get there.
Okay, last one, Casey Concepcion.
See, this is a guy that I'm like, another one. 5'11", 190. Bro, please don't be 5'10", 185. Another guy that I think is like great against man coverage. Separation ability is probably just in one-on-one situations, probably the best of all the guys we've talked about so far. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to rank him first.
I've heard from someone else that, too. They were like, I think he's my favorite guy.
Just breaks off routes at the right time. Really difficult to cover. Is definitely a playmaker. can play above the rim. He takes some nasty hits and gets back up. He's got some weird drops, I think, maybe more so focus issues than like tracking or technique issues. So I think hopefully those can be kind of ironed out of his game in time. But yeah, somebody that I think could go early second, late first. The right team could really make use of this guy. And again, I think not a slot-only player, can be inside out for sure.
Could the right team be the Raiders? Because that's what I was thinking for him.
I like that. Early second round, right? You get Mendoza at one, you get a pass catch early in the second.
And also just painting a picture, because I, like you, like to plug these guys into offenses to see what I think. And if you've got Kubiak coming in, and you can't help but think of the Seahawks.
Sure.
And put him in kind of that guy that like operates a little bit not like JSN,
right,
but like JSN's role. You've got the 12 personnel that you can roll out.
Yeah, we're not saying he's going to be the next Jackson Smith and Jigba, but again, frame-wise, size-wise, right. And the thing with JSN is one of the big reasons that he was able to go from a slot-only player in his first 2 years and at Ohio State and be this outside. Like, you've only played 17.5% of his snaps in the slot in the regular season, which is crazy because the year before it was like 78% in the slot. That's a huge transition. One, he was able to do that because he's awesome against man coverage. He's always been awesome against man coverage. And that was something I maintained. Shout out to me, Lindsay. 365 days ago here at the Super Bowl, I said, bold prediction on Football 301, JSN is going to lead the NFL in receiving yards. Thank you. Said a lot of said a lot of other really dumb stuff that was totally wrong. But at least
we're not going to go back to that.
But at least we hit that one. And one of the reasons, again, was the ability to dominate against man coverage. But the other part of it that, again, and I didn't know this at the time, but the more you think about it, the way Kubiak takes that X receiver and condenses them closer to the line of scrimmage, you're almost then essentially making that number one guy into a pseudo slot receiver because they have so much space to work. Again, the game is so different now. I almost have had like an existential crisis about receiver alignment in this way that when you thought of the X receiver back in 2014, when I started this, offensive lines here, boundaries over here, that guy's like sorry to slam on the table. That guy's all the way over here. That's not a lot of space at this point along the boundary. Now that we're condensing that X receiver closer to the offensive line, that's a ton of space out here, a ton of space in here. So when JSN specifically has those like elite head fakes, probably the best right now, like using his head to like sell one route, give you another. So sells it outside, snaps inside, vice versa, whatever. Like that with the scheme, you can do that for a guy that looks and feels and wins more like a slot receiver.